Dixieland. I was born early love on frosty morn. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory,
My name is William Silas, a native here of Jonesboro, Arkansas, and I'm honored to be able to be here today on Memorial Day, and as I said, of a very important year of celebration. We are here today to remember. The names of the brave men and women who have fought for our nation are here in brick form, and we remember them today and every day so that they may never be forgotten. I ask you that you think of a veteran that has gone on and think of them today and every day. Remember their brave sacrifice. On this day, I want to remember my great-great-grandfather, Private William Wiseman Honnell, who stood here at this courthouse and was drafted into the United States Cavalry during World War I. He was born on May 30th, 1895, which was 131 years ago. Today is a very special day for me to remember him and all of our service personnel that have gone before us. And once again, I want to encourage you all and challenge you all to be thinking of those that you know and your family and your friends that have fought for this nation. At this time, I would like to turn your attention to this side for the presentation of the colors. All rise. Please remove your caps. At ease. The national anthem will be sung by Lori Dial.
Early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets ran say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You always do a fabulous job. At this time, you may be seated. Post the colors. At this time, I would like to recognize our elected officials that are here today. Thank you to the mayor that is here behind me. And thank you to Mary Dawn Marshall for being here this morning. At this time, I'll be calling on the mayor to give a couple words and bring a couple words to the community.
Good morning. What an honor to truly always be in front of our community, especially in memorial times. You know, the basis and the foundation of who we are is by those that have been laid before us. So Memorial Day to me, my father served for over 24 years and he has an honorable brick here. It's about sacrifice and it's about giving to others without being asked to do so. And this is what the men and women that serve our military currently and those that have gone before us have done. Memorial Day to me, there's something that always shines. And let me just kind of give you a little bit of a history. We hear taps always being played at the end. And that symbolizes the bugle. It symbolizes military funerals and memorial services to honor fallen soldiers. The melody conveys a sense of peace, a finality, symbolizing the end of the day and the sacrifice made by those in the military. This was originated back in the Civil War. And it wasn't until 2013 that Congress designated it as the Song of Remembrance for All. And it is played every day at the end of the day at the Arlington National Cemetery. But to me, what taps will symbolize today is throughout all of the United States. It will be played and it will unite our communities and country in remembrance of those that have fallen before us. Thank you and God bless to all of y'all.
Very well said, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to recognize all the service personnel. If you would, and are able, stand or raise your hand at this time. If you were in the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, TAL, DAV, VFW, and MOAA. Thank you very much for your service. And all veterans that have served in combat or war. Thank you very much for your service to this nation. Freedom is not possible without you. At this time, I would like to call on my grandfather, which is the guest speaker of the 250th celebration today for Memorial Day, Danny Honnell.
Thank you, Will. The thing about these celebrations, this is a red letter day, being the 250th. How many helped celebrate the centennial of the city and county back in '59? I remember I had one little Colonel Sanders bow ties with a little ribbon to come down. I couldn't afford the one that had the writing on it said centennial, so Mother just got me one at pennies, so I celebrated that way. You know, most of us celebrated the bicentennial. When we had the 150 of the city and county, we even had a parade that day. And I had Will in that parade, and he was like 9 years old. It's important that we get the young people involved in our celebrations to remember our past. Now, I am not a veteran, so anything I say about a veteran, I'm not bragging. I'm recognizing, because a lot of them have done a lot of things, and you know veterans that can't talk about their past, what they experienced, how traumatic it was with them. But I am a patriot. My father was a World War II Marine. My grandfather was World War I. He was a cavalry private. His horse's name was Fiddler. He passed down the name of his horse even. My great-grandfather, he was a second lieutenant in the cavalry during the war between the states. My third great-grandfather, he was in the War of 1812. And then my fourth great-grandfather was William Honnell, and he was a Revolutionary soldier born 1757 in Germany, and he died in 1809. He's buried in Franklin, Tennessee, and I'm very proud of the veterans in my family. My brother was Vietnam War era. He's in a nursing home, and he doesn't know anything. The word dementia has entered our family, and he can't even live in the past because he don't even remember that. But my family has always been tied to the history of this county and this state. My dad was born on June 15th, 1923. The state was created on that date in 1836. My grandmother was born February 19th, 1898, and the city was created in 1959 on February 19th. So that has been passed down through me to preserve my heritage. Now, if you don't know who your great-grandfather is, chances are your great-grandchildren will not remember you. Your heritage is taught and passed down, and it is your duty to do that. As a symbol of the people that can't be here today, I have a vacant chair setting by the monument. I have a candle, and I have a lid that was World War II, Korea, Vietnam era helmet to remember those that cannot be here today. I've never met a person that everyone called a hero that called himself a hero. Most of the people that you see that got the Medal of Honor, they say, I didn't win this. I was awarded this for what my comrades did with me. Underneath our Craighead County monument, there's two bricks, one for Nick Bacon from Caraway, Arkansas, and Ken Sisler that was from Missouri, but he attended Arkansas State. We chose a place of prominence to recognize those. Heroes aren't born, they're made like diamonds, like a rough piece of coal that under pressure, that makes that diamond. All gave some gave all. Now, in doing the research of our county and its history, I don't know of any Revolutionary soldiers that's buried in the county. The DAR searched for years. The only person that I think might be close to here would be Abraham McDaniel, and he's probably buried down close to where McDaniel Cemetery is. But I'm sure there was a lot of Revolutionary soldiers walk through this area going to the rocks of the Ozarks, because there's quite a few of them buried in the first hills of the Ozarks. World War I, or the Great War, we lost the first casualty of George Pickett. We lost various ones, but during the war between the states, I like to remind you, you are on a Civil War battlefield. Two Union soldiers lost their lives basically where the Doughboy statue is. Two lost their lives south of the courthouse, and three lost their lives at the corner of Church and Jackson. The lone Confederate that died got killed over here at Union and Washington. This ground was occupied July 17th 1862. The forces of the North came here in their effort to preserve the Union. And when they got here, they decided that they wanted to find some action, so they went out to Coal Hill west of here. And the story that's been passed down, that it was a pretty good skirmish, and then one of the scouts got separated from the unit. He was in a dry creek bed, and he heard two men talking. He spurred his horse to get out of the gully, and he got up there, and there was two Confederate officers, one lieutenant colonel and a major. And he got the drop on them. The colonel had two ivory-handled pistols. Those were prized possessions he took from the colonel. He asked him, said, "What's in your saddlebags? They look awful full." He said, "We got our dirty laundry in there." He said, "Well, I'm going to take you back to Jonesboro, and we're going to wash your clothes free gratis." They got back here. Those was payroll officers. Their saddlebags was full of money. Now, I don't know if there's Confederate bills or Yankee greenback, but they had enough that had been significant. Then there was an argument, who gets the ivory-handled pistols? The quartermaster says, "That's property of the United States government. You have to turn them over to me." The colonel spoke up and said, "Those was my guns. I gave it to that youngster when he captured us. He deserves one." So he kept one of the pistols. Well, the other pistol went to the quartermaster. But what most people don't realize is that with that regiment, there was a captain named Henry Harrington. And you say, why are you remembering a Yankee colonel that was here fighting local people? Because later on, this guy was in Georgia, Irwinville, Georgia, May 10th, 1865. He helped capture Jefferson Davis to end the war. So you don't think about things that go around here. You know, we're very historic. I always joke that Jonesboro is very good about building parking lots. You know, this used to be Court Square, and most people got a cup of coffee over here at the Court Square Cafe, or got your hair cut, or got drugs over at the Globe Drug Store. And then, of course, Arkansas State started right over there, and there was a row of businesses, and the Hotel Noble's over there. But I think for the betterment of our city and county, it's more progressive with it being open, because you see the smaller towns that has kept the Court Square, it kind of holds them back. But I think I hated seeing us lose the buildings. But that's the price of progress. But when World War came and Pickett got killed, this county raised monies, nickels, dimes, quarters, to help build a monument that's called Over the Top. An architect or sculptor from Chicago, John Paulding, he designed that. There's 33 of them in the United States. That was one of the first ones put up in this country. It's estimated it's worth $250,000. I don't want to see no dollar signs in you guys' eyes now. We need to keep it here. But the big controversy is, does he have a bayonet? Does he don't have a bayonet? There's scars on his hand where there used to be a bayonet and someone stole it. If you look at the rifle, it's bent where someone climbed on it trying to get the bayonet off. So we decided that we'd rather not have the bayonet and have an intact statue. Well, one of the most prominent people in Jonesboro through the years, he lived to be 100 years old. It was Mr. Weaver that owned Central Chevrolet. In World War I, he flew a bi-wing plane. He was at Vanderbilt going to college. He dropped out of college to go for the cause and flew a bi-wing plane. And he told me when he walked south on Main Street, Herbert Parker, that had Globe Drug Store, told him, said, "Bill, come here." He said, "I need you to help me dispense drugs." And so that's what he did until he started Central Chevrolet in the 1930s. But one of the most significant things that happened, there was a man by the name of James Abner Kafka. He was in the Navy, but they had him on ground on one of the long guns that could fire artillery shells. November 11th, 1918, at 11 o'clock, he fired the last artillery shell in World War I. The man was from Craighead County. He's buried out at Herman Cemetery. That apparatus and that shell, the hull that he fired, is in the Smithsonian. It says James Abner Kafka, Jonesboro, Arkansas, fired the last artillery shell in World War I. That's pretty significant in my books. But you go to World War II, Pearl Harbor was a chapter that started in this country was hard for us to get over. And I didn't realize it for years until I did research. There's 2 bodies on the Arizona of men from Monette, Arkansas. One was Charles Hardin, the other was Charles Sevier. They went on the Arizona November 1 of 1940, right after Hardin had graduated Monette. They went down with the ship. They're still on watch. A ship close to them, the Oklahoma, still has the body of Robert Trimble, born in Jonesboro. His body never recovered. And over in the Philippines, Second Lieutenant Basil Wimberly, he was killed in the Philippines. His body is buried in the William McKinley National Cemetery in the Philippines. But you know, we can go on and on and on about things, but we had men that was pretty prominent. Paul Settlemeyer, he got a Bronze Star. He didn't just get a Bronze Star. He was probably the most decorated man from Craighead County. He got his Bronze Star in Africa, and a guy named Patton pinned it on his uniform. He died 17 days after D-Day. And when D-Day happened, there was a guy that attended Jonesboro High School, was on the undefeated 1942 basketball team. He volunteered for service even though he had a scholarship to go to the University of Arkansas on a football scholarship. But he was a pathfinder. If you go to the D-Day Museum, they play a video. They say the first credited casualty of World War II is Gene Sellers of Jonesboro, Arkansas. You know, that is something that names of individuals from this county. Then the guys in World War I, my grandfather stood about where the county marker is. And probably Kafka stood there and some of the others. And then during World War II, when my dad was almost drafted, he went into the Marines. But everyone knows Roy Wiles' name. He was the first casualty of Dutch Harbor. And Dutch Harbor's significant because if you watch the movies of Midway, here they're getting ready for this attack at Midway, but the Japanese are acting like they're going to do something else. They did attack Midway, but they also attacked Dutch Harbor. And there's a monument over here with the loss of life from this area that we chose to remember. But then we used to have a man that helped us with this monument named Albert Richardson. The man had trouble walking. He only had one arm, but he could do more than most he was a plumber, he was an electrician. He helped lay these bricks. He fixed an apparatus out of metal to pull these bricks if we need to pull one up to repair it. I miss Albert. When you see the picture of MacArthur, when he said, "I shall return" at the Philippines, to his left is Victor Berger from Jonesboro, Arkansas. We was represented. And then when Truman was elected president, he appointed John Snyder. And you say, why are you talking about John Snyder? Truman and Snyder and General Vaughn was in the National Guard in Oklahoma before World War II. Truman remembered Snyder and appointed him Secretary of Treasury. And most of the dollars had his autograph when he was Secretary of the Treasury. But this year has been, Korea has been very prominent in my mind. This is the first time that when we've called out Korea, no one raised their hand. In 2015, when we called out World War II, no one raised their hand. They're gone. They're with the vacant chair. Charles Frierson III, he died this year. Billy Jack Simpkins, that blew taps for us at Memorial Day here before, he's gone. Zane Gregg, Lori's uncle, my cousin, he was always here at Memorial Day. And then I had a cousin, he lived in Caledonia, Mississippi. You said, well, that's not Craighead County. His dad worked at Gray's Florist over on Monroe, and he used to visit Jonesboro. He died this year. These men do not repine. These women do not repine. They live life to its fullest. They knew how to live. I say to you, Godspeed, as I bring my talk to a conclusion. And I'm not going to try to pronounce the word for observance of the 250 because Will has a better pronunciation than I do. But all I can say is, I'll see you in 50 years. God bless. We're going to reenact something. During the war between the states, close to Caledonia, Mississippi, that I mentioned earlier, is a place called Columbus, Mississippi. They have a large cemetery there. After the battles of Shiloh and Corinth, there was great loss of life. And the ladies got their flowers together for Decoration Day, went out to the cemetery, and it was putting flowers and ribbons on their relatives' stones. And so they looked to the hill to the side. There was broken ribbons and broken rocks and crosses up there. And they decided they had enough ribbons left that they would decorate those stones. It was a magnanimous gesture on their part because that was the grave of the Yankee soldiers that had probably killed their loved ones. As a reenactment of that magnanimous gesture, I asked Lynn Hahn to escort Miss Bobby Barnett, the matron of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, to lay a wreath at the base of the War Between the States Memorial.